Good evening. This is Maestro Cortello with a Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite modcast. Today we have a 2v2 on Medean Cliff Mines, and our first player here is Djimbo, or maybe it's just Djimbo, kind of like in that movie Django with Jamie Foxx. He is playing as the Lord General, who is very colorful right now. He's got a bionic arm, bolter in one hand, sword in the other. He is a support hero, the only hero who has a squad, and most of his abilities are for buffing big Imperial Guard blobs. His teammate is Whitehead 1981, and he is playing as the Grey Knight Bro Captain, who is a tanky melee hero. He has a really big sword. He's kind of like sizzling with psychic might. He is a tanky melee hero. He cannot be knocked down or suppressed. Starts out with speed 4, I believe, but he can become pretty fast with We Are the Hammer, which has been upgraded or has been activated. He was hitting a barrel right there, and he can tank quite a bit. Very powerful with the Canticle of Absolution ability. On the other side, we have Imperator playing as the Chaos Lord, and this actually looks like a Thousand Suns Chaos Lord. The Chaos Lord is also a tanky melee hero, but he can do some decent range damage. Starts out with about 15 DPS coming out of that twin-linked bolter, and you can get the Combi Flamer for roughly double the range DPS, or you can go for a more melee-oriented build. He also can walk through cover and cannot be suppressed or knocked down. And finally, we have Typhus playing as a recolored Dark Angels Force Commander, so he has the toothbrushes on the side of his helmet. And he is also yet another tanky melee hero, can be knocked down and suppressed, but in my opinion, one of the best tanky melee heroes, although they're all pretty good. In part because he has that melee disruption. He can also punch vehicles, which is one of the best walker counters in the game and good against vehicles in general. So 2v2, Sentinel standing around here doing nothing with his guardsmen, should move up, try to support Whitehead as he moves in forward. Whitehead going with a short build right now. He has chosen not to get a second Inquisitorial Stormtrooper squad, and a Heretic squad just goes down just like that, as well as a Bro Captain. So very quick losses on both sides. But just a few announcements. Right now, there is actually a slight shortage of replays. This is a replay submission, thankfully, but there's a relative shortage of replays, both in terms of what's in my inbox as well as what's available on game replays. So that's one announcement. Another announcement I have is that, as many of you know, I have been quite busy, and I'm actually expecting that starting in January that will actually change a bit for the better, and by for the better I mean that I will probably be a bit less busy. The demands of my schooling are going to be more demanding, but that in turn means that I will probably not be working a job like I am right now. So more demands of school, but I think probably a net increase in free time for me to cast. But anyway, back to the game. So Imperator, already losing a Heretic squad, does not have a single Heretic squad out on the field, which is, it's always awkward to see a Chaos player not have a squad of Heretics for both the worship, the melee counter initiation, and the repairs. Pretty important squad to have at least one of, and usually, in fact, two of. So Imperator, I wonder if he's maybe a newer player. I think there was some discussion about that in the chat. He has enough requisition to get a new Heretic squad out, and he should probably do that. But red team looks like they're occupied. They have occupied the middle right now. I was going to say maybe they got the better end of early engagements, but maybe not necessarily. Bro Captain does get repurchased. That was not entirely necessary. They could have tried to win an engagement to save Whitehead the requisition, but you just kind of have to balance that. Balance risk and reward and whether or not that's something you can actually do. He'll be at a bit of a disadvantage trying to fight without his Bro Captain, and they're not necessarily sure if they can win that engagement. Bro Captain already upgrading to have the Nemesis Force Sword. For a while, that was not a very common upgrade for the Bro Captain, just because his Tier 2 weapons are so powerful, and the Nemesis Force Sword is not really that powerful as a weapon. However, it is very powerful in terms of the buff it gives to the We Are the Hammer ability. And I've actually been seeing more and more of that ability. So Chaos Heretics are replaced, but they need to be very, very careful. Havocs, meanwhile, getting tied up. Are we going to see some force melee from the Catachan Devils? And no, they don't. They probably would not have wiped the squad, but I think they would have gotten at least 1 or 2 models. Either way, these Devastators set up. They are not shooting, though. This one Devastator squad not shooting for some reason. Meanwhile, Interceptors from Whitehead teleport on this one. They are very, very low on health, though. Still 3 models, but I think they need to get out of there before they lose any models. And we have a double Devastator purchase from Typhus. If you notice, the Devastators now have a new portrait, which is actually quite beautiful. Wasn't entirely necessary, but it's really quite beautiful. And in fact, Typhus lost a Devastator, which is not entirely surprising. Grey Knights right now with those Interceptors are very, very powerful at countering setup teams, so much so that it can actually be difficult to justify getting setup teams. And they're good not only at just countering the setup teams, but even threatening to wipe them, because I believe their teleport is only 55 energy, and then because they have a teleport rather than a assault jump, they are very fast and can very easily actually finish off a squad like a Devastator squad that is retreating. But suppression teams out of both of our red team players, a Havoc out for Imperator, and the red team player is going for relatively inexpensive, relatively short and inexpensive tier 1 builds. So especially on the red team, they are getting to tier 2 quite quickly. Blue team taking a little bit more time. Djimbo going with a longer build, actually getting 4 units in addition to his commander. Whitehead only getting 1, but he has expensive squads like the Strike Squad, the Interceptors, and there's also the fact that he repurchased his Bro Captain. So attacks coming in. They are Dark Angels, but again, recolored, so they are black, maybe Black Angels. And they do need to be careful. They did get a decap off on that point, and now they are backing up. They are actually backing up into the firing arc of that Devastator, which is, well, I'm not sure if I want to say pretty smart. It's a good idea, but it's not incredibly smart. It's fairly obvious, actually, if you play the game regularly. It's just something you kind of do. Like, you can have a setup team in the back, and then as one of your units that is ahead is getting attacked, you can back up into a firing arc, into a friendly firing arc, so that any units that pursue walk into that firing arc. So Catachan Devils right here did not lose a single model in that engagement, despite being at about 60% of their health. That is, of course, one of the strengths of Catachan Devils. They are very, very good at not bleeding because of the way they share damage with their squad leaders, so they generally do not lose models until most of the squad is actually ready to die. Over here, looks like Whitehead might be making a move for the power farm. He put a incinerator on his strike squad, and he's just committing some forces up here. He's got his Bro Captain. Interceptors are capturing, and they are also upgrading to have. They're also upgrading to have a Justicar, which will allow them to do Furious Intervention, allowing them to disrupt when they teleport into a blob. We also have a Justicar on the Strike Squad. We also have a Dreadnought from Typhus, as well as from Imperator. And the double Dreadnought play is something that I think can be a very, very powerful play in teams. Because, first of all, it's even normally just getting any kind of vehicle forces a vehicle response from your opponent. Dreadnoughts force a very hard anti-vehicle response because they are so tough. And a double Dreadnought play really, really makes things difficult in terms of, again, forcing an anti-vehicle response, which can be very, very... It can really mess up your opponents if either they are playing a race that does not transition very well into Tier 2 in terms of AV, such as, say, Chaos, or maybe even Tyranids. Or even if, against any race, if your opponent has a build that is just not well suited to transitioning into AV in Tier 2. such as, I don't know, if you got, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. I guess even Grey Knights are some who could, are a race that could potentially struggle with that. These Catachan Devils and that Lord General can't just stand around there for too long. But the missile launcher is one potential response. Now, the missile launcher, ooh, that's a bad situation. The missile launcher is not really a hard AV response. It is a nice supplemental AV response, and it is very good for pursuing and chasing down hit-and-run tactics, but it is not powerful. It is not powerful. It's burst damage, but the Sentinel missile launcher has a very slow rate of fire. So we do have a las cannon on the heavy weapon team. That is a very hard AV response, in fact. And we do have a Meltagun on the Catachan Devils, which is a light AV response. Meanwhile, Whitehead doesn't have a whole lot. It appears that he switched out the Incinerator for a... He switched out an Incinerator for a Psy Cannon. It looks like he might take out that Scout Squad, which is kind of a bit of a blow for Typhus. Typhus will need to replace that so he can get repairs for his Dreadnought. But Whitehead is actually, right now, he's in a position where he really does not have adequate AV to take out something like a Dreadnought. He just has the one Psy Cannon, and then he has the crack grenades on the Interceptors, which is really not enough to take out the Dreadnoughts. Not enough to take out even one of the Dreadnoughts. Djimbo is in a much stronger position to take out a Dreadnought, so he's just going to have to rely on positioning. That's a very good position to be in. He's got a las cannon taking a shot. Will it get one more shot off? No. Out of the firing arc, and also probably out of sight range as well. Ooh, this is... Well, looks like we have Meltaguns on the Lord General as well. So Imperial Guard is a race that transitions very, very well into Tier 2 in terms of responding to anti-vehicle. Yeah, Catachan Devils need to go, though. Because we have a Meltagun on this Lord General. We have Meltaguns on the Catachans, as well as the missile launcher and the heavy weapon team. Now, this is something where I feel some players, certainly, I think there are a lot of better players who would not invest in AV the way that Djimbo has. They would not respond this way, where he's gotten so many different sources of AV. And he's kind of... It may actually even be slight overkill, although probably not now that he has lost the Sentinel, which I think that was a really, really bad choice, using that Sentinel as a way to try to disrupt that plasma cannon, because he was really overextending it, exposing it, and that Sentinel was, I think, actually pretty important. That can be really, really good. Even though I said it's not really hard AV, it can be really, really good chasing down a Dreadnought in a situation where it has taken a lot of damage from a las cannon. It managed to get out of the arc, but then it's on its way back to base with very little health left. And that's a situation where a Sentinel missile launcher can be very, very powerful. Because the advantage of the Sentinel is not its damage, it's its mobility. And some late artillery spotters, which is an interesting choice, but they still have Havocs to deal with, a Devastator squad, as well as a Plasma Cannon Devastator. So a lot of Plasma guns or Plasma Cannons and setup teams that can be really, really make Djimbo's day pretty bad. Whitehead is very well equipped to counter such squads, but Djimbo himself will be very, very vulnerable to that if he doesn't have Whitehead support. Looks like we now have a Purgation squad, which has been upgraded to have Psy Cannons, so even this is not really terribly strong as far as AV goes. This is still not a terribly strong AV response. But interestingly, they're kind of switching. Here we go with the throw of the crack grenade, and it lands. Oh, I'm actually wondering if maybe the crack grenade has been changed to function like a melt-a-bomb. And there we go with one Dreadnought down. Maybe a second one. No, I think this one is actually in a good position. Oh, but now it's taking las cannon shots. Interceptors jumping behind enemy lines, but they are very low on health and might start losing. I think this is going to be another Dreadnought down already. So I think this will go down. Oh, yes, it will. I was wondering if it was going to be able to tie up the las cannon. Unfortunately, the las cannon should not have retreated, because it could have started taking shots at that Predator. And all of a sudden, it's the blue team with the bigger armies And we have overextended units on both sides. Strike squads need to get out of there as well, or they're going to lose another model to this Predator. As it is, I think they might still lose another model to this Predator. Even if the Predator pursues a little bit, maybe one more autocannon shot, but it doesn't take that shot. At least not on that strike squad. So Whitehead, meanwhile, lost stormtroopers at some point, but I think the green, there is no green team in this game. The red team in this game definitely suffered the bigger losses, losing their vehicles. Typhus is already in Tier 3, and he has a new vehicle, a better vehicle, to be honest. But he still has to be very careful with this, again, because Djimbo still has a lot of things that he can use to counter a vehicle. Ooh, and that was a plasma cannon shot that was not nearly as good as it could have been. Missed most of the Imperial Guardsmen, and I think this is a Terminator call-in from Typhus. Yep, there we go, and he goes for ranged Terminators, which in a way is very, very smart. In particular, I think it's the better choice against the Imperial Guard. Imperial Guard, they certainly have things that can do damage to the Terminators in the form of Plasma Gun Guardsmen and Plasma Gun Kashrikins, but those squads also take a lot of damage from the Terminators. They take a lot of damage from the Terminators. The Terminators usually can't stay in the, against them. And this might also be a dead Interceptor squad. It probably is. Yes, it is. So Whitehead suffering big losses right now. So ranged Terminators, I think, can be very, very powerful against Guardsmen, and with pretty much any weapon upgrade as well, or even without a weapon upgrade, just because they got 100 DPS on all three of those Storm Bolters combined. So just the damage they would be doing, practically killing a Guardsman model a second, while the Guardsmen need to be doing damage over time. He's actually going for the Heavy Flamer, which could also be very, very powerful against Guardsmen because of the area of effect damage on that Cleansing Flame. And I think we're going to see some Cleansing Flame right here. I believe one of the changes in this version of the mod is also that previously, I think the Heavy Flamer on the, definitely on the Force Commander Terminator and possibly on the regular Terminator Heavy Flamer, it did not do splash damage except for on Cleansing Flame, but just on the actual, yeah, it definitely does splash damage now. That was very, very powerful, so definitely a buff for them. We just saw the damage they were doing to those Guardsmen, and that is something that is going to be very, very powerful for Typhus. And I'm not even entirely sure how he's going to deal with that.
Our allies have themselves a victory point.
So Whitehead is waiting on resources. I think he said that he was going for, it says going for Paladins and a nuke.
Right. We're in the middle of upgrades.
Ooh, and we have a Terminator Force Commander. Terminator Force Commander. Now he has, I believe his Heavy Flamer has also been changed so that it does splash damage. But he's going for Lightning Claws instead, which, not a bad idea, considering we have a Lightning Claw single Terminator model that can actually retreat, teleport and retreat. So definitely a lot of good things about this Terminator Force Commander. You still don't see him used very often, just because you lose all of the regular upgrades as well as the levels of your regular Force Commander. And there are definitely a lot of useful things you can get out of that non-Terminator Force Commander. But we now have a great unclean one for Imperator. We also see the Lord General has switched weapons. He's also gotten stabilizers, which is generally considered a very, very powerful ability. I wonder if it has actually... oh, wow, that plasma cannon shot took out so much health on that that Purgation squad. Ooh, but this Bro Captain is way overextended. Here is an orbital bombardment. Bro Captain will go down. Oh no, they're not... The heretics are not moving. They should have gotten out of there. And this Great Unclean One is also not doing anything. Tries to do worship in the middle of the... while getting blasted. I think that just might save the squad. Typhus actually losing squads, though. He lost a Devastator. And at some point... well, he has never replaced his scout squads, and he still has a Predator right here. Great Unclean One took a few vomits. Probably just one, since that's all you can actually do with him. And now we also have some Paladins. No. Grey Knight Terminators. Grey Knight Terminators going for this Great Unclean One, and they may just finish him off with the huge power melee damage they have. That stomp from the Great Unclean One no longer knocks back units like Terminators. So this Great Unclean One in a lot of trouble. The Terminators are chasing, though, and they might actually die instead. So this... It looks like they're going to try to take out... They're not even going to take out the Plasma Cannon Devastator, so this is really bad for these Grey Knight Terminators, because I think they are going to go down here. They are getting shot at by Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines that are at level 3, and Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines are one of the best super heavy infantry counters in the game. And yeah, we have a squad of Grey Knight Terminators already dead. Unfortunately, overextended by Whitehead. I think he... Ooh, and there goes a Predator. I think he just really wanted to take out... I think he just really wanted to take out that Great Unclean One, but he got nothing out of it. Now, luckily, Djimbo doing some work. This could be really, really bad. We have some Terminators. Oh, the Katashan Devils just might get wiped. All this fire coming out of the red team, but Typhus has now lost every unit except for his Plasma Cannon Devastators and his Terminators. He, of course, does have his Terminator Force Commander. And Djimbo suffering immensely with all that area of effect fire damage, but at the same time, still really keeping things together. Hasn't actually lost a squad. He took out that Predator because he has double las cannon heavy weapons teams, which unfortunately at this point are not going to have a whole lot of use. They will be able to, I guess they will be able to counter the Great Unclean One very nicely, and they will be able to hit the Terminators. But I feel like maybe Djimbo could have gotten one las cannon and one auto cannon, so that auto cannon could do more to other units. We have a late game whirlwind for whatever reason out of Typhus. He could get so many other things. Could have gotten a Land Raider, I think. Could definitely get Predators. Could get more Terminators. He could now get Assault Terminators in addition to his las cannon Terminators. That would be pretty beastly. In addition to his ranged Terminators. We do have some Chaos Terminators from Imperator, who is also floating massive resources. Could get himself nothing because he doesn't have the population for it. But he'll be able to replace something. Oh, we could have the Purgations go down right here, and they do in fact go down. Had to retreat through Chaos Terminators, and this is like having a fourth Chaos Terminator who's even better than the regular Terminators because we have a Chaos Lord with the Lightning Claws. I mean, the Chaos Lord is basically in Terminator armor if you look about it and think about it. Meanwhile, over here we have Havocs that are nearly dead. They are standing around in a bunch of fire, and they're actually going down. So Imperator could now get some kind of new unit. He could get a tank, he could get a new squad, he could pretty much get whatever he wants, except for he cannot get a Great Unclean One, and he cannot yet get more Terminators. But these double las cannons actually doing quite well, because they can take shots at Terminators, they can also take shots at the Great Unclean One. And one of the things I think we saw from Djimbo, and I think one of the ways he took out that Predator, is that he's combining the las cannons with the sniper rifle. So he's giving those las cannons, which already have huge range, he might be giving them even more range with this Lord General sniper rifle ability. And Lord General going for the cap, and he's not going to get it because of the disruption from that whirlwind. And oh no, here goes some regular Terminators. They are dead. I think from, yeah, those regular Terminators are dead. Typhus lost his Terminators. He also overextended his Terminators somehow. Not necessarily sure how, but he did. And these Terminators, normally Tzeentch Chaos Space Marines are one of the best counters to something like Terminators, but not when they're getting tied up by Terminators. Strike Squad coming in right here to kind of reinforce those Grey Knight Terminators, but I'm not sure. I'm not really sure if they're really good enough for that. In fact, they might even get wiped here trying to support. They do, I believe, lose their Justicar. Meanwhile, over here, Guardsmen getting right here. They're taking shots at this Plasma Cannon Devastator, and they suffer a huge direct hit. That Creeping Barrage unfortunately came very, very late. If it had come earlier, that would have gone a lot better for Djimbo. Djimbo's still with very good squad preservation. I think he needs to get this Guardsman right back to his bunker so that he can get them healed. Now, these Guardsmen, they can do a summary execution to stop themselves from retreating, and then just reinforce right here from this bunker. Will he do it? And yes, he does. That's exactly what he does. And then he's reinforcing from right here, which is the smart thing to do. And we still have the Grey Knight Bro Captain still with the Nemesis Force Sword, which is curious because he's trying to fight a and I'm missing orbital bombardments. I don't know that much actually happened, but it looks like there's another one right here that is hitting absolutely nothing. But Djimbo definitely doing the Lord General thing. He's got an infantry blob that he is supporting with buffs from his Lord General. It's a double cap for the blue team, but they are much lower on VPs, only 105 versus the 320 of the red team. Red team suffering a little bit for units. Typhus not buying too much. I think he might be in a mode where he is just getting, like, he's kind of just getting super units. When I think he might want to get some more basic units. In particular, Typhus should definitely get a new scout squad so that he can repair his Whirlwind as well as this Land Raider that he just built. And this Great Unclean One is getting worship, so it will get some healing, but it's not going to get out of there this time. This time it actually does get taken down by some Grey Knight Terminators. We also have Paladins out on the field as well. Ooh. Chaos Space Marines taking a few losses as well. I think they get out of there with 2 models. It looks like just 1. Yeah, just 1. So, Great Unclean One goes down, and Imperator can just straight up buy a new Great Unclean One. He can also get new Terminators. He can get kind of whatever he wants. And, oh, do we have a Manticore? We have a Manticore, and we also have Paladins that are right behind this Land Raider. That is probably a dead Land Raider already, which is unfortunately not very good play from Typhus to lose a Land Raider like this so easily. And then, of course, there is generally the Land Raider is actually considered a support vehicle for the rest of your army, not an assault vehicle. And he kind of squandered that. He does have some assault Terminators in here right now, but they do still have their hammers, so they can't really take on Lightning Claw Terminators or Grey Knight Paladins. Something's going to go down here, and it's going to be these Grey Knight Paladins, but the Chaos Terminators might just go down as well, because they are overextending, actually decide not to chase the Paladins, but they are going to be getting out of there with maybe all 3 of their models, unless they take more Guardsman shots. Yeah, and those Chaos Terminators actually get out of there with all 3 models, so no bleed at all. And they took out quite a few Terminator models as well. But the Bills, again, Imperator could be getting more things than what he has right now. And here is an Imperial Abyss that is going to hit nothing. That is, of course, one of the challenges of the Imperial Abyss, using it and not getting anything with it. It is kind of tricky to use. You really need to either try to trick your opponent into retreating through the center, or getting them to pinning them inside the center, or just hoping that they just stay there and don't react. Djimbo did react, however, so he did not lose anything from that Imperial Abyss, aside from maybe a few models off of his Guardsmen. Double Manticores for Djimbo, it looks like, building, because he's already got one, building another. Still has these double heavy weapon teams. Should split them rather than having them right next to each other. And Typhus has now actually spent all of his resources. His Force Commander is on the ground. He still has the Assault Terminators, have been upgraded to have Lightning Claws. And Imperator, interestingly, going for Bloodletters. I think that is somewhat of a curious choice. Imperator is in this lane. He is against Imperial Guard. I don't think Bloodletters are really what he needs right now. Some things that could work out, and I'd also be very cautious with this Land Raider Phobos with double las cannon heavy weapon teams. Ooh, and now it looks like Imperator is going to get doubled right about here, and we're also having a Land Raider Crusader drop, which I think is actually a bad time for a Land Raider Crusader drop, because he's going to be dropping it right next to a Land Raider Phobos, and the Phobos will have the better end in the will definitely have the advantage in a direct fight, despite the health advantage of the Crusader, just because of the AV coming out of this Phobos. Except for the fact that the Phobos is really not even targeting the Crusader. But here's the thing that's really going to give them the edge. We got Manticore shots hitting the Phobos, and now the las cannons have turned, and I think they have also been buffed by the sniper roll. This is already going to be a dead Phobos. So again, overextended Phobos, I think, not as much of a support vehicle as the other Land Raiders, but I think it's still going to be the one to go down here. Yep, just a few more las cannon shots, and already, here's the Phobos dead. One more las cannon shot, and there it goes. So unfortunately, I think Typhus is kind of not really fighting with Imperator at the moment, and Imperator is overextended while being doubled. Plasma Cannon Devastators get very, very close to being wiped. They are level 4 Plasma Cannon Devastators. Yeah, and this Typhus still has not built a new Scout Squad to support his vehicles, and I think he might even lose this Predator right here. No, he's going to get out of there alive, but still, nevertheless. And these Assault Terminators also in a very, very poor position, going for that capture. But they need to keep going. Typhus really needs to build a new Scout Squad. Noise Marine's not a bad choice if you put the Blastmaster on them. I think that's actually something that could be very, very powerful for them, for basically just for the red team right now against the Guardsmen. And here we go with another Manticore strike. Not going to take out these Devastators, but still very, very devastating to them. And we had some Paladins that were able to finish off that Predator. Red team not looking very good at this point. Might even lose this Terminator as well. Force Commander gets revived.
They have 100 points, sir.
And that Assault Terminator might still be dead. He's getting chased down, and he does die. All right, at this point, I would say I see this game going in favor of the blue team. It is now a triple cap. And the red team has lost most of their stuff.
Sir, our advantage is slight. Devastator has found us.
Got the Chaos Lord right there. I think he used Destructive Strike on those Catachan Devils. And here we go with that Blastmaster taking shots. A Manticore strike again. A Guardsman squad actually died for Djimbo, and he has no Guardsmen. He's just making another Manticore. Must have lost it to some fire, but I don't think it matters. I think this game is going to go in favor of the blue team. Imperator has managed to get a decap off in the middle, but it's still a double cap for the blue team, so it's got to be going to them with only 7 VPs left.
Good show, sir.
And that is it. That is the end of the game. This was a submission from Whitehead 1981. Pretty interesting game. Certainly a lot of carnage, although not quite the highest level, and there were definitely some things that some overextensions of squads and lost squads that I think you would not see from some higher level players, but I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless. There's a relative drought of replays right now, both in terms of what is sitting in my inbox and also what is available on game replays. Nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night.